No one moves like Cale Makar. When walking the blue line, he seems beyond the realm of mortals. Every other player, NHLer, or those aspiring to achieve such heights can learn from Makar's ability to dissect, break down, and anticipate. But the player who defines today's generation of defensemen was far from a unanimous 4th overall pick back at the 2017 draft. Not only was he old for the draft class, but he played in the Alberta Junior Hockey League. Not the CHL, but the 2nd or 3rd best Junior A league in the country. Today, Makar is unwavering in his commitment to make the most of every puck touch. Back then, he was still learning how to make the most of his tools. Even the plays that make Makar's game so influential today weren't key parts of his game back in Junior A. This is the evolution of the player who sits atop the NHL's blue line hierarchy, highlighting the development of his signature skill, the changes in every part of his game, and tracing his path from the Brooks Bandits to UMass to the Norris Trophy. Our first stop, the AJHL.
Into Makar left circle, sharp angle shot and a pad save made by Gora. Behind the net, Makar stands up. Jack Thomas cuts side of the net, backhand wraparound, scores! It's almost unfair. It's just unfair that one team gets Cale Makar and they can't all have a player like him.
On it, left hand boards Makar, skates down the boards to the corner, stops up there, then got around a defender to the side of the net, cuts in front, shoots and scores! A thing of beauty, a work of art. Cale Makar just took over this whole game.
Given the Makar of today, it's no surprise that Makar's skating was his defining skill back in his draft season. It wasn't just his speed, acceleration, or powerful driving crossovers. It was his edges and how easily he changed directions. He was, and is, uniquely explosive off his inside edges. With a 1-foot stop, he goes from 100 to 0 in no time at all, creating tons of separation. Look at that blizzard. The unique explosiveness appears in his heel-to-heel, not just using it to survey, but to accelerate. His cutbacks were essentially textbook. Look at that lower body flexion and the explosive push-off to separate. Defensemen couldn't keep up. Then there's Makar's handling. He fluidly moved pucks across his body, easily beating multiple players in quick succession. How he dangled through defenders with his feet moving remains uncommon for top blue line prospects today, but it's the details that were most impressive. He froze forecheckers with fakes, then accelerated. There's no extra handling. He preferred to push pucks into space to maximize his acceleration. With his first touch, he instantly put pucks in his hip pocket, positioning the puck to make the next play. And Makar's shot was always a bomb. The one-timer with downhill speed that he uses today already appeared back then. He literally skates out of the zone here before launching this puck into another dimension. He always had the wrister too. He picked corners after beating defenders and combined his cuts to the middle with the weight shift for the release. He masked his shots by shooting in stride. Notice there's no glide, it's straight into the shot. Such advantages meant that Makar could often do whatever he really wanted. His rushes were unbelievable, changing speed, attacking the inside, and breaking down entire teams. Despite such advantages, his game had plenty of flaws. He had a tendency to skate straight into pressure, especially after beating the first forechecker along the walls. There were a lot of passes to no one, often caused by scanning over just one shoulder instead of both. And his playmaking often lacked. He took too long to make passes, for example. This delay, with no deception, was a frequent source of turnovers for Makar. But with great tools comes even greater potential. There are numerous through lines from his AJHL game to his NHL one, the skating obviously. Those cutbacks continue to create just as much separation in the NCAA and the NHL. The heel-to-heel skating became even more of an advantage as he rose the ranks. Notice the similarities between this play and his iconic goal against Minnesota. His dynamic rushes translated too. How about the similarities between these two plays? He generated many of his scoring chances in similar ways too. The cut inside off the boards remains a staple, often set up with a fake to the outside. And he'd always take the space his teammates created for him rather than shooting immediately. A knack for shooting for deflections appeared in the AJHL, which remains a big part of his NHL game. And how about the shot fake? It's identical. He loads his outside leg as if to shoot, then repositions to shoot around the defender. But there are a couple of things Makar didn't do in the AJHL. Most notably, this.
Very curious. Makar
Janot, he'll scamper in. Here's Makar with the gun. He scores! McKinnon back out to the right point for Makar. Makar around Dickinson. Makar now to the net. And a penalty. They score!
That is Cale Makar's signature move. Here's how it works. First, he moves through the pass reception, usually toward the middle, while keeping his head up. As soon as the defender's feet turn, Makar hits the brakes and accelerates in the opposite direction. He's not only taking advantage of his opponent's momentum, but dictating it. He's manipulating. In the process, he's taking pressure in front and putting it behind him, which is the more favorable position. It's a formula from which he builds offense, layering on different skills as necessary. Here, Makar doesn't move laterally first. He knows that the defender's slow forward glide won't be enough to stop his acceleration. Manipulation isn't necessary. Similarly, he sometimes just waits for uncommitting defenders to close space, exploiting their unwillingness to engage him with speed. He also knows that defenders will overreact to his shot threat, which he uses in place of the lateral movement to turn their feet in the wrong direction. If defenders anticipate the move to the outside, he continues to fully sell it, then cuts back towards the middle.
Still with it, Makar. Still with it with a shot. He scores! Oh my goodness!
The sheer variety of ways that he builds off that formula of scan, fake, stop, accelerate is remarkable. The pre-touch scanning identifies the options, the movement creates access to them, and the manipulation enables use of the best possible one. He adheres to the formula on most touches, even mundane ones, always ready to capitalize on mistakes. Back in the AJ, Makar's signature play didn't appear much. I combed through dozens of hours of tape. This was the only instance of it. It was the last game of the season. Instead, Makar settled for low percentage plays in scenarios where he now beats the defender to create a chance. However, he consistently put himself in position to use his now signature skill. First, he moved through pass receptions with his head up and faked shots, key parts of the manipulation process. Instead of breaking down defenders, he used his lateral movement to sneak pucks just out of their reach. He had an exceptional ability to shift his weight over one leg before exploding laterally, providing both additional deception and the separation on his signature play. And the handling style, remember how he always pushed pucks into space when accelerating? That same underhandle appears during his signature skill, enhancing his speed advantage. Makar either didn't see the opportunities to manipulate from the point or other plays superseded them, but he did see those opportunities in transition. He convincingly faked passes with look-offs and deceptive puck positioning before leading the charge, often using the exact same feints that he uses from the point now. The weight shifts appeared in transition in similar ways to how they appear on the point today. And on occasion, he'd pull out that signature skill to gain the offensive zone. In short, Makar had all the skills and tools. They just needed to be collected and sequenced in the right order. Enter UMass.
Here's Makar all the way in. Score! Now, guys are fake. Makar, one-timer, score! Look at the speed difference right there, how he just pulled away from Shabbat. Coast to coast, quick shot, score! And Cale Makar with an incredible play.
Makar's time at UMass is the stuff of legend. He committed to a middling program that had never amassed more than 21 wins in a season and only appeared at the NCAA tournament once. When he joined for the 2017-18 season, they were coming off a 5-win campaign. They played 36 games. 2 years later, they won 31 of 41, making it all the way to the NCAA finals. Makar won the Hobey Baker as the country's top player as his game achieved new heights. It's here where Makar starts sequencing the various skills and tools in the right order. It's here where his signature move appears regularly. It wasn't always as pretty as it is now. He barely gets away from pressure on most of these, but it's a significant step forward. He also starts experimenting with the variations that we all know and love today. It's also with UMass where Makar starts becoming a dynamic off-puck activator. In Brooks, he made occasional activation reads, such as anticipating handoffs along the boards, but the majority of his off-puck work were these scripted plays off face-off, such as a give and go down the middle. but he missed opportunities to jump in the play, especially up the weak side. He had the instincts though. Here, reading the pass to the point is cut off, he activates into the passing lane. That's a common read from him now, but the only instance from that position I saw in the AJ. By Makar's second NCAA season, he's joining every single play in every single way. The weak side became an area of emphasis, with Makar always sprinting into the play. UMass's structure demanded their blue liners compress the zone by getting as deep as possible while keeping all 5 opponents in front. This shift highlights the benefit. He successfully holds the zone twice before deflecting a breakout pass. He starts creeping off the point more regularly for one-timers, and he starts activating down the far side as a forward moves high. Those are trademarks of Colorado's game today. When a forward comes high, it's common to see both defenders activate simultaneously. His off-puck movement, along with his partner Devon Taves, creates time and space for his teammates and just straight up baffles defenders. Those same set face-off plays from Brooks appear in Colorado's regular offensive zone play too. It's also with UMass where Makar becomes more of a playmaker. With Brooks, his playmaking was mostly limited to shooting for deflections, the occasional pass off the rush, and scripted face-off plays. His rushes became more diverse, leaning heavier on his playmaking. The give-and-go breakout appeared more often. After gaining the zone, he dropped pucks back and finished his route to create space behind him. Where he previously cut in and shot, he found a teammate in a better position, and he starts manipulating opponents with the intention of passing, using the threat of a shot to pry open passing lanes into and across the slot. In the NHL, the combination of deception, passing skill, and manipulation appears regularly, often set up with his signature move. But Makar doesn't just become a better player in the NCAA, the gap between himself and his peers increases. Here are a few stats. Makar's playmaking impact basically doubles at 5-on-5. That doesn't happen when going up a level. In fact, his expected primary assists per 60 was the second highest mark I've ever tracked for a defenseman. That's a sample of over 1,000 mostly CHL blue liners across 5+ seasons. He's playing against better competition. With signature move, activation game, and newfound playmaking, Makar's offensive impact also reached greater heights with UMass than with Brooks. He was one of just 4 defensemen in that dataset to lead their team in expected primary assists per 60, one of a dozen to generate scoring chances for himself at a top 5 rate on their team, and the only one to be the most important creator on their team at 5-on-5, shooting or setting up a team-high 23% of UMass's expected goals. Most players, like blue liners, have like 5. He was his team's offense in a way that no other prospect has been in recent memory. In the AJ, he opted for a pass or carry on 81% of his pressured exits. Impressive, but that was only 6% above Brooks' team average. They were a team ahead of their time. His 82% with UMass was a staggering 28% above their average, basically the highest it can possibly be. In the NHL, he still opts for controlled plays on 77% of his exits, 21% above Colorado's team average. Remember, their entire team opts for controlled breakouts at a higher rate relative to the rest of the NHL. The same impressive phenomena exists with Makar's zone entry numbers too. Then there's Makar's defense. It was a strength back in the AJ. His reads weren't always perfect, never do this, but he was especially aware. He shoulder checked and scanned nonstop. His gap was often too passive, but he made up for it with his defensive skating. He took the middle away early, widened his base, kept his head up, and only used crossovers to close space. He mirrored footwork to keep attacks to the outside, and he was also very physical. One simply didn't hit Cale Makar. He became a better defender in the NCAA, breaking up more plays in his own zone and getting earlier stops. By his draft +2, he was getting a clean steal on half of the controlled entry attempts against. That is unbelievable. And the physical component of his game grew. He was out there flattening people. And good luck getting one back on him. He Forsberged anyone who dare venture too close. I mean, these are just ridiculous. His defensive timing always stood out too, poking pucks away just as the puck carrier lifted their stick off the ice. Watch him do this to McDavid, it is glorious. He always had a knack for turning defense into offense, highlighted by immediately knowing the next play after winning possession, which remains a key part of his success today. But it's in college where he starts somehow getting breakaways every other game. He's so quick to apply pressure but never finds himself on the wrong side of the puck. Notice how he guides the attacker to the blue line, takes away the middle, anticipates the pass, and then gets the steal, and no one is going to catch him.
Knocked away. Here's Cale Makar. He's going to skate in on hockey. Makar is in and he scores.
Oh, and it works in the NHL too, just like, well, everything else that he did at lower levels. Each step of the way, Makar used his tools more effectively. The frequency with which he manipulated opponents increased from the AJ to the NCAA to the NHL. When he went from the AJ to the NCAA, he didn't just become a better player, but the distance between himself and his peers increased. And within a few years of reaching the NHL, he's risen to the top of his position again. Makar's growth from an AJHLer learning how to use his tools to the top of the NHL is a reminder that development isn't just one factor. Development occurs the confluence of tools, adaptability, and favorable environments. Decision-making can always be improved. And he's not finished. Makar's game continues to grow, constantly adding new variations of his signature skill, defensive improvements, and creative activation reads. Makar is this generation's defining defenseman, a title he won't soon relinquish. Enjoyed the video? Don't forget to like and subscribe, then head to epringside.com, the best source for hockey analysis and breakdowns.